Type 1. The Peacekeeper. Picture this. You're in a group chat where someone sends a message that lands weird. Not offensive, not aggressive, just slightly off. There's a pause, a digital silence so loud you can almost hear it buzzing, and before anyone can spiral, you jump in. Hey, I don't think they meant it like that. Lol, it's all good, no stress. Guys, chill, we're all friends here. Welcome to the life of the Peacekeeper, the people pleaser whose full-time job is emotionally diffusing situations that barely even exist yet. Peacekeepers don't wait for conflict. They sense it coming. Like a weather forecast only they can read. A change in tone? A delayed reply? Someone using a period instead of an exclamation mark? Boom. Internal alarms. Their brain instantly switches to damage control mode. Smooth it over. Lower the tension. Make sure no one's upset. Especially not at them. To everyone else, the Peacekeeper seems chill, mature, easygoing. The let's not make this a thing person. The one who sees both sides. The emotional adult in the room. Inside, they're exhausted. They're tracking everyone's moods like a live stock market. Wondering if they said the wrong thing, replaying conversations, asking themselves if keeping the peace meant staying silent when they shouldn't have. Peacekeepers don't avoid conflict because they're weak. They avoid it because conflict feels unsafe. Somewhere along the way, they learned that harmony equals survival. That if everyone's okay, they're okay. So they swallow opinions. They soften truths. They say, it's fine when it's not. And later, much later, resentment sneaks in quietly. But here's the thing people forget. Without the Peacekeeper, groups fall apart over small things. Tension festers. Misunderstandings grow teeth. Someone has to care enough to hold it all together. This is the Peacekeeper, the one who keeps everyone calm, quietly, wishing that peace didn't always come at the cost of their own voice. Type 2. The Chameleon. Picture this. You walk into a room and immediately start reading it. Who's confident? Who's sarcastic? Who's judging silently from the corner? And before you've even said hello, you've already adjusted. Your voice shifts, your humor recalibrates, your opinions slide just enough to fit the shape of the room. Welcome to the life of the chameleon. The people pleaser who doesn't have one personality but a carefully curated selection. Chameleons don't fake who they are, they adapt. Put them with loud people, they loosen up. Put them with serious people, they become thoughtful. Put them with strong opinions, they soften theirs just enough to survive. To everyone else, the chameleon seems socially gifted. Easy to be around. The kind of person who just works everywhere. Rarely disliked, rarely challenged, rarely the problem. Inside, it's a constant calculation. Is this too much here? Should I tone this down? Do they like this version of me better? Chameleons aren't shapeshifters because they're fake. They're shapeshifters because rejection hurts more than invisibility. Somewhere along the way, they learned that being flexible keeps them safe, that blending in prevents friction, that standing too firmly as one thing risks being pushed out. So they learned to mirror, to match energy, to become socially fluent in a dozen dialects. The cost shows up later, when someone asks, "What do you actually think?" And the answer stalls, not because they don't have opinions, but because they've trained themselves to keep them adjustable. And yet, here's what people miss. Chameleons are the glue in mixed groups. They translate personalities. They smooth differences. They make rooms feel comfortable without forcing anyone to change. They don't disappear. They blend. This is the chameleon, the one who can belong anywhere, quietly wondering what it would feel like to belong without adjusting at all. Type 3. The Fixer. Picture this. Someone in your group casually mentions a problem. Not a cry for help. Not an emergency. Just a passing comment. Ugh, this is such a mess. I don't know what I'm going to do. Everything's kind of falling apart right now. And your brain goes, say no more. Welcome to the life of the fixer, the people pleaser who hears a problem and immediately reaches for a solution, whether anyone asked or not. While others offer sympathy, the fixer is already in action mode. Making a plan, listing steps, connecting dots. They don't just want to listen, they want to resolve. Because sitting with someone else's discomfort feels unbearable when you know you could do something about it. To everyone else, the fixer looks helpful, reliable, the one who always knows what to do, the person you go to when things go wrong. Inside, they're carrying way more than their share. Fixers feel responsible for outcomes that aren't theirs. If Someone's stressed, they feel it's their job to ease it. If something breaks, they assume they should fix it. And if a situation collapses, they blame themselves, even when it was never in their control. Fixers don't step in because they love control. They step in because helplessness feels terrifying. Somewhere along the way, they learned that being useful keeps them needed, that solving problems earns safety, that if they're indispensable, they won't be abandoned. So they overextend, they overfunction, they say yes before checking their own limits, and quietly resentment builds. Not loud resentment, the tired kind, the kind that shows up as burnout, frustration, or the sudden urge to disappear for a while. But here's the truth most people overlook. Without the fixer, things fall apart faster. Plans stall, problems linger. Someone has to be willing to step forward and take responsibility when no one else will. This is the fixer, the one who keeps everything running, quietly wishing that someone else would say just once, "Hey, you don't have to handle this alone." Type 4. The guilt giver. Picture this. Someone asks you for a favor, not a huge one. Just a small, harmless, "Hey, could you..." And before your brain even finishes processing what they're asking, your mouth says, "Yeah, sure." Even though you're exhausted. Even though you already have too much on your plate. Even though a quiet part of you immediately regrets it. Welcome to the life of the guilt giver. The people pleaser who doesn't say yes out of desire, but out of obligation. Guilt givers don't help because they're overflowing with energy. They help because not helping feels morally wrong. Like saying no makes them selfish, or cold, or secretly a bad person. To everyone else, they look generous, kind, incredibly dependable. The person who's always there, always willing, always giving. Inside, there's a negotiation happening every time. If I say no, will they be disappointed? Will they think less of me? Will I feel bad about this later? So they say yes, and deal with the consequences quietly. They rearrange their schedules, push past exhaustion, sacrifice rest. Tell themselves, "It's fine, I can handle it." Until one day it's not fine anymore. Guilt givers don't set boundaries easily. Boundaries feel like rejection, like withdrawing love, like doing something cruel instead of necessary. And here's the twist. The resentment they feel doesn't explode outward, it turns inward. They blame themselves for feeling tired, for feeling annoyed, for secretly wishing people would stop asking so much of them. But here's what people forget. Most systems run on guilt givers. Friendships, families, workplaces, they survive because someone keeps showing up even when it's inconvenient. This is the guilt giver, the one who gives and gives, quietly hoping that one day rest won't have to be earned through exhaustion. Type 5, the apologizer. Picture this. You're walking down a hallway and someone bumps into you. You barely move. They're the one who zigged when they should have zagged. And instantly, without hesitation, without thought, you say, "Sorry." Not they're sorry, you're sorry. Welcome to the life of the apologizer, the people pleaser whose default response to existing is an apology. Apologizers don't just say sorry when they mess up. They say sorry when they speak, when they ask questions, when they take up space. "Sorry, quick question. Sorry, just checking. Sorry, this might sound dumb, but..." To everyone else, they seem polite, considerate, soft-spoken, almost angelically non-threatening, the kind of person no one could possibly be mad at. Inside, they're bracing for impact that rarely comes. Apologizers live with a quiet fear of being a burden, of inconveniencing people, of being too much simply by having needs or opinions, so they soften everything preemptively, like putting bubble wrap around their own presence. Sorry for interrupting. Sorry for taking time. Sorry for existing at full volume. They don't apologize because they're weak. They apologize because blame feels dangerous. Somewhere early on, they learned that taking fault keeps things calm, that if they accept responsibility quickly, conflict passes faster, that being agreeable keeps them safe. So they shrink themselves just a little, lower their voice, phrase everything gently. And over time, something subtle happens. They stop knowing when an apology is actually necessary. But here's what people overlook. Apologizers are incredibly self-aware. They care deeply about impact. They want harmony, not dominance. They'd rather take a hit than let someone else feel uncomfortable. This is the apologizer, the one who says sorry before speaking, quietly hoping that one day their words won't need permission to exist. Type 6, the self-eraser. Picture this. Someone asks you a simple question. What do you want to do? Where do you want to eat? What's your opinion? and your brain stalls. Not because you don't have preferences, not because you don't care, but because your instinct is to disappear from the equation. I'm fine with anything. Whatever you want. I really don't mind. Welcome to the life of the self-eraser, the people pleaser who survives by taking up as little space as possible. Self-erasers don't announce themselves. They don't push opinions. They don't argue for their needs. In groups, they slide into the background so smoothly it almost looks intentional, like they were never meant to be centered in the first place. To others, they seem easy, low maintenance, flexible, the kind of person who's never difficult and never demanding. Inside, there's a quiet shrinking happening. Self-erasers learned early that having needs complicates things. That preferences create friction, that wanting something too clearly risks being labeled difficult, selfish, or inconvenient. So they learned a safer strategy: adapt, agree, disappear. They tell themselves, it's not a big deal. They convince themselves, I don't need much. They get very good at minimizing their own presence. Over time, something strange happens. They stop checking in with themselves at all. When asked what they want, the answer doesn't come. Not because it's forbidden, but because the habit of erasing has been practiced for years. Their wants feel distant, optional, less important than keeping the peace. And yet, here's what people miss. Self-erasers are incredibly considerate. They notice others deeply. They make space effortlessly. They keep groups smooth by never demanding the spotlight. But the cost is heavy. Because disappearing for others doesn't mean you disappear from yourself. It just means you get quieter inside. This is the self-eraser, the one who makes room for everyone else, quietly hoping that one day there will be room left for them too. Type 7, the emotional sponge. Picture this. You walk into a room feeling fine. Not amazing, not terrible, just neutral. 10 minutes later, you leave feeling heavy, drained, off, even though nothing directly happened to you. Welcome to the life of the emotional sponge, the people pleaser who absorbs emotions they never agreed to carry. Emotional sponges don't need someone to say, I'm upset. They can feel it. A sigh that lasts half a second too long. A smile that doesn't reach the eyes. A shift in tone that most people ignore. Their nervous system picks it all up like background radiation. To others, they seem empathetic, caring, deeply emotionally intelligent. The person who always knows when something's wrong and checks in quietly. Inside, they're overloaded. Emotional sponges struggle to tell where their feelings end and someone else's begin. If someone's anxious, they feel anxious. If someone's sad, they carry it. If someone's angry, they brace, even when it has nothing to do with them. They don't do this for attention. They do it because discomfort in others feels like an emergency. Somewhere along the way, they learned that staying emotionally attuned keeps relationships stable. That anticipating feelings prevents blowups. That absorbing the weight is safer than letting it spill. So they hold it, they listen, they reassure, they carry. And later, when they're alone, the exhaustion hits. Not the I need sleep kind, the I've been emotionally holding a room together kind. But here's the truth most people miss. Emotional sponges are often the quiet emotional backbone of groups. They sense shifts early. They prevent breakdowns. They create spaces where people feel understood without being interrogated. The cost? They rarely feel light. This is the emotional sponge, the one who carries everyone else's feelings, quietly wishing they didn't have to absorb everything to be loved. Type 8, the performer. Picture this. You're in a group that's going flat. Conversation stalls, energy dips. Someone checks their phone a little too obviously. And without anyone asking, you step in, you crack a joke, tell a story, exaggerate a moment just enough to pull a laugh out of the room. It works. People smile again. The vibe lifts. The moment survives. Welcome to the life of the performer, the people pleaser who keeps the room alive by becoming the entertainment. Performers don't wait for attention. They sense absence, a gap, a silence that feels dangerous. And when they feel it, their instinct is to fill it with humor, energy, charm, personality. To others, they seem confident, funny, charismatic. So easy to be around. The kind of person who can walk into a room and immediately change the mood. Inside, they're working. They're tracking reactions, timing jokes, adjusting delivery, wondering if that laugh was real or polite, if the energy dipped, because they missed a beat. Performers don't perform because they love being seen. They perform because being unnecessary feels terrifying. Somewhere along the way, they learned that value comes from contribution, and entertainment is contribution that gets instant feedback. If people are laughing, they're wanted. If the room is alive, they've done their job. So they stay on, they carry conversations, they smooth awkward moments, they become the spark when things start to dim. And when they're alone, the silence hits differently. Not peaceful, empty. Because when you're used to being the energy source, stillness can feel like disappearance. But here's what people forget. Without the performer, rooms feel heavier. Moments stall, groups drift. Someone has to inject life when things go quiet. This is the performer, the one who keeps the moment alive, quietly hoping that one day they'll be valued even when they're not entertaining anyone at all. If you liked the video, watch these as well. And make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next.